Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain. And as most of you probably already know, Spain is once again opening its doors to foreign tourism, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, the door for tourists here in Spain is finally opening again, with the Prime Minister announcing last Friday that people from the United Kingdom will be able to visit Spain from tomorrow the 24th of May. As we can see here from this headline, travellers from the UK will be able to freely enter Spain from Monday with no restrictions and no coronavirus test. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said in English that the country will be delighted to receive British tourists. The Spanish government has opted to add the United Kingdom and Japan to the list of countries whose residents will not be subject to coronavirus restrictions when travelling in Spain, including the requirement to present a negative PCR test on arrival. That's according to an order that was published today in the official State Gazette, which justifies the decision, arguing that Spain usually receives a large number of visitors from the United Kingdom, meaning that many economic sectors need to adapt their capacities in advance to the changes that will take place at the borders. So a clear message there from Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez to anybody in the UK that was planning a trip to Spain this summer. Spain will be delighted to receive you. And another important thing is that people will be allowed to visit Spain from the UK with no negative PCR test needed on arrival. But as we all know, Spain is not on the UK's green list. Portugal is, Spain is not. Spain is currently on the amber list, which means that there are some quarantine requirements when people return to the UK, and the UK government, as we know, is recommending people against travelling to amber list countries. So the question is, will Spain's status be changed to green anytime soon? Well, the British newspaper The Independent doesn't think so. As we can see from this headline, Spain, Italy, Greece and France won't make the green list in next update. It's looking increasingly unlikely that tourism favourites Spain, Greece, Italy and France will make the UK's travel green list in the next update, despite the Justice Secretary's claim that the government is very keen to see as many countries as possible make the list. It means more opportunities for holiday makers and the ease of transport that clearly makes a holiday a much more pleasant experience, so we'll continue where we see the evidence to add countries, Robert Buckland told Sky News. Meanwhile, the Scottish Government has taken a different approach. The 4 UK chief medical officers have said that green list status should be the exception rather than the rule, with countries added to the list only where there are very good reasons for doing so. So will countries like Spain, France, Italy and Greece make the green list in coming weeks? That's the question. And until that happens, I imagine that Spain is not going to get the amount of British tourists that it was expecting. Now, there was also some good news for people from other non-EU countries when it comes to travelling to Spain this year. As we can see here, back to the beach. Spain welcomes all vaccinated tourists from June the 7th. Tourist magnet Spain will let people from anywhere in the world who are vaccinated against COVID-19 enter the country from June the 7th, hoping to galvanise a recovery in the devastated tourism sector. The world's second most visited country before the pandemic hit, foreign tourism to Spain plunged 80% last year as restrictions brought leisure travel to a virtual standstill, leaving its beaches, palaces and hotels almost deserted. Entry will be allowed to vaccinated travellers regardless of their country of origin, and notably from the United States, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez announced on Friday at Madrid's Fitur International Tourism Trade Fair. So if you are in the United States and fully vaccinated, June the 7th is the date that you can come to the country. Now, as we just saw, before the pandemic hit, Spain was the second most visited country in the world. And although nobody here in Spain is expecting pre-pandemic tourist numbers, the government is optimistic that some 45 million tourists will visit the country this year. As we can see from this headline, tourism looks for a lifeline after the great pandemic meltdown. Spain, which lost 70 million foreign visitors in the pandemic, aims to attract 45 million travellers this year. Tourism, one of the basic engines of the Spanish economy, is now looking for a way out of the unusual collapse caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Spain, which had accumulated one record after another of international travellers, was suddenly empty of tourists, and more than a year later has still not managed to recover them, although there are some hopeful signs in the rate of vaccinations and in the progressive reopening of borders to travellers. So Spain hoping to attract 45 million tourists this year, and I don't know about you, but I think that figure is a little bit too optimistic. But we'll wait and see. Now, one popular tourist destination here in Spain hasn't wasted at any time when it comes to attracting domestic tourists, and busloads full of Spanish pensioners are now starting to roll back into Benidorm. As we can see here, abuelos welcome inside the first bus of vaccinated grandparents to Benidorm. The bus driver announces that they have arrived at their destination, Benidorm. The passengers, all of them pensioners, look out the windows. They can't believe it. They have cut off the street. The hoteliers applaud, the tourists stop with curiosity, and the cameras of the main television stations in Spain record this unusual moment. Even the mayor of the city has come. From the bus with their beach chairs and umbrellas, a few humble pensioners get off with the Asociación Cultural de Mayores de Fuenlabrada, the first to organise a trip of vaccinated people since the pandemic began. So good news there for Benidorm, as pensioner tourism is finally returning. And it was such a big event down there in Benidorm that even the mayor turned out to greet them. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain. We can see the accumulated incidence rate countrywide is now down to 135. There are currently 5,717 people hospitalised around the country with COVID, and there are 1,655 COVID patients in ICUs. And if we have a look at the map on the left of the health situation in the various autonomous communities, we can see that currently there are no autonomous communities here in Spain with an extreme risk level anymore. Now, the diplomatic crisis that Spain had with Morocco last week is making headlines still, and the foreign minister has come out and said that Spain didn't start the fight. As we can see from this headline and a quote from the foreign minister, Spain didn't look for this crisis and it's not fueling it either. What we want is to leave it behind as soon as possible, reflects the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Arantxa González Laya, in a conversation with El País at the end of a week in which Spain has experienced its biggest clash with Morocco since the seizure of the islet of Perejil in 2002. We are respectful in our relations with all countries, but we also ask them to be respectful with us, she adds. She is aware that the crisis is far from over, although Spain has decided not to respond to the hostile gestures coming from the other side of the Strait of Gibraltar and is not going to recall its ambassador to Rabat for consultations, as Morocco has done with its representative in Madrid. So tensions between the two countries still high, and Spain thinks that Morocco needs to show them more respect. Good luck with that. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Duncan: at last we can finally travel to Spain from Monday. Don't even need a PCR test prior to arrival, although we've had both doses of the vaccine already. Ferry booking changed the next Thursday. I can finally drive our Spanish car back after it's been here in Scotland for the last 7 months. Yeah, Duncan, thanks for the comment, and obviously happy that you are allowed back into the country as of tomorrow. And I'm sure that there are a lot more people in the UK that have changed their travel plans and are also looking forward to getting back to Spain as soon as possible. And let's be honest, it's been a long time that Spain's been closed to people from the UK. I'm not sure exactly when Spain shut its borders to people from the UK. Not sure whether it was earlier this year or late last year when that happened. Of course, it all had to do with that English variant of the coronavirus that they discovered in the UK, and Spain didn't want that variant entering the country, hence the border closure. But as of tomorrow, that is no longer the case, and as we saw earlier, Spain is going to welcome everybody from the UK with open arms. One here from Anna: hello Stuart, is there a date that the USA can enter Spain as a tourist? Yeah, Anna, thanks for the comment, and as we saw earlier, there is a date. It is the 7th of June for people that are fully vaccinated from countries like the United States. However, I'm not sure if there is a negative PCR requirement also needed. We saw that that is being scrapped for people from the UK, but I'm not exactly sure what the situation is when it comes to people from outside the EU countries like the United States. But I'll look into it and see if I can find the information for the next video. One here from John: Spain and other EU countries competing for tourists would be justified in accusing France of breaching EU state aid laws in using state resources to give France a competitive advantage by providing free PCR tests. Yeah, John, thanks for the comment. Obviously referring to something that we saw last week when France came out and said that they were going to offer free PCR tests for people that were planning on visiting that country this year. Spain said that they would not offer a free test. I think the tourism minister, Ms. Maroto, said that Spain can't afford it at the moment, but as we saw earlier, they have decided to scrap the negative PCR with people from the UK. And I imagine it's going to be the same for travellers from other EU countries if they have a low incidence rate. But I think France is acting on something that the European Commission wanted all countries in the EU to do: provide free tests to visitors this year. So I don't know if they would be breaching EU state aid laws if it was a European Union recommendation. One here from Tribal Fusion X: At present, Greece, Italy, Portugal and Spain require masks outside. Until they drop this stupid rule, tourists will be hard to attract from the UK. Yeah, Tribal Fusion, thanks for the comment. I have seen a few comments similar to this one saying that Spain needs to drop its mask rule if it wants people to visit the country this year. Lots of people will be put off by the fact that you have to wear a mask everywhere you go here in Spain. But the good news is that they are now starting to talk about this here in Spain. We saw Spain's chief health expert, Fernando Simon, mention this last week. He said that there are plans to drop the mask wearing mandate in some circumstances, especially when it comes to elderly residences, people that have been vaccinated. Maybe they won't have to wear a mask outside, but he didn't give a specific date, and I imagine that we will hear more about this topic in coming weeks and months. And I've said it once and I'll say it again, the sooner Spain drops its outdoor mask wearing mandate, the better. One here from Estrella. Hola Stuart, nice to see you out and about and keeping well. A very happy birthday to your son, hope he enjoys the celebrations. We are still locked out of the world in Australia, as you know, and very much looking forward to seeing our family in Europe again. Our grandchildren are growing so fast and we're missing out on them. Thanks again very much for your videos. They are helping me to be close to my wonderful Spain. We hope you can get back to Oz soon with your family. Muchas gracias, Estrella and Bob. Yeah, Estrella, thanks for the comment. And as you mentioned there, Australia locked out of the world at the moment. No one knows when they are going to open the borders down there again, allow people to leave the country to travel, and allow people to travel to Australia for tourism purposes. In fact, it's very hard to get into Australia even if you are an Australian citizen. But the good news is that Spain is open. If you are in Australia and you want to come to Spain, there's no problem. The country is open to people from Australia and 10 other countries with no restrictions. I think New Zealand as well, and a few other countries. Can't remember exactly which ones. So if you want to come here, there's no problem. But of course, the question is always going to be, how easy will it be to get back? And I would like to be able to visit my family sometime in the near future, and I imagine that all Australians living abroad would also like to have that option. One here from German. Nice video, Stu. Are you planning to visit Portugal soon? I'm curious about how the tourist reactivation is going on there. Cheers. Yeah, German, thanks for the comment. I am planning to visit Portugal soon. Not sure exactly when, maybe June, maybe July, but I am planning a trip to that country. And to be honest, I'm not sure what the tourist situation is like there at the moment. We saw last week that lots of people from the UK went to Portugal, of course. Portugal now on the green list, and Portugal opened to British tourists last week. But I'm sure the tourism sector in Portugal will recover. As we know, Portugal is a popular tourist destination. It was before the pandemic, and it's one of my favourite destinations in the world. But as I said, hopefully I'll be able to get there soon and enjoy everything that Portugal has to offer. Finally, one here from Petey. Wow, Stuart, mangas cortas, que suerte tienes. Disfruta el sol. Yeah, Petey, thanks for the comment. We did have some t-shirt and shorts weather last week. Of course, things have changed at the moment, as you can see. I'm back in long sleeves again today. The weather has turned stormy, wet and cold today, and that's one of the characteristics in this part of the world when it comes to weather. It can be good one week, bad the next, and until June we won't get regular good weather. But the good news is that the sun is going to be shining, I think, all next week, so hopefully it will be t-shirt weather again. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.